Hi, I'm Taylor. I'm an early childhood education student, and today I'll be reflecting on my experience of listening to Uncle Robert Paul Young, a survivor of the Kinchela Boys home. His story is one of the many from the stolen generations. This video is not a retelling, but a reflection on how I engaged in story listening, also known as Daddy Re, which is the practice of deep listening and quiet, still awareness. So through this, I shut out the noise of life and I committed to being present. From the moment the video began, I felt full body shivers. The didgeridoo, Uncle Robert's voice, and his presence just really grounded me. His testimony became a journey for me, and one that followed the 4 levels of listening described by Sharma, who explains how listening deepens with presence and openness. At first, I was in the downloading phase, listening through a lens of what I thought I already knew. I believed I understood the stolen generations, at least in theory. But growing up outside of Australia, I didn't grasp the depth of the pain. As Uncle Robert described losing his family and his culture and his name, I shifted into factual listening, realizing these lived experiences were far beyond what I had learned. When he spoke of being kidnapped and dehumanized, I moved into empathetic listening. I wasn't just hearing at this point, I was feeling. I noticed the weight of each pause he took and each breath that became longer. Then came generative listening, where we are changed by the act of listening itself. Because story listening invites transformation, not just understanding the storyteller, but being changed by the act of listening itself. I realized that the listening in this way is an ethical and emotional practice. It shifted how I view trauma, identity, and my role as an educator. One challenge I faced was holding his silence. I wanted to pause the video or explain away the quiet. But story listening is not about fixing, it's about being present. I had to sit with the discomfort and feel the story rather than analyze it. Rinaldi describes listening as an act of ethical responsibility that requires openness, empathy, and a willingness to be transformed. That transformation for me was learning that silence isn't empty. It holds truth, and it's powerful. I thought I understood who the stolen generation were and why it happened. But hearing Uncle Robert's lived experience of the emotional and physical abuse made me realize how much I didn't know. I had assumed that knowing some history meant understanding, but true understanding came when he said he was only known by a number and made to walk bare to the world. That dehumanization shook me. Coming from an abusive childhood, I understood being reduced to behavior, but what Uncle Robert experienced was his identity being erased. My insight didn't come from comparing, though. It came when I stopped projecting and started to witness. The Healing Foundation describes intergenerational trauma as a legacy that can affect identity, parenting, and connection. I now understand that listening means holding space for someone else's story without needing to relate, but to just honor it. Listening to Uncle Robert's story, I kept thinking no one should ever have to go through that. I've had a difficult past, but I still had my name, my language, and the chance to define my own safety. Uncle Robert was shaped by force, his identity and culture erased. Story listening reminded me that privilege isn't always about what we have. It's also about what others were denied. Samson et al. Explains, belonging is not about fitting in, but about being recognized and valued. Uncle Robert wasn't given that chance. As an educator, it's my responsibility to ensure every child in my care is seen, heard, and never reduced to a number. This experience has reshaped my practice of inclusion. I used to think being trauma-informed was enough, but story listening has taught me that real inclusion starts with how we listen. I won't just give children time to speak. I'll slow down, tune in, and show them that their voice matters even in silence. I'll witness, respect, and hold their truths. Arrow highlights that creating belonging and connectedness starts with intentional relationship practices. I now understand that listening deeper is the first step, that listening builds trust and makes space for understanding how children want to be seen, that presence and a willingness to truly hear is the foundation of how I'll move forward in my inclusive teaching. Thanks for listening.